Welcome. In this episode, we're talking about LinkedIn. Specifically, what are some of the biggest mistakes that people are making on LinkedIn and how you can avoid them? One of the other questions we'll be answering today is what to post, how often should I post, and what are some of the things that you can do right now to be found by your ideal clients on LinkedIn? Today, I'm being joined by Rhonda Scher. Rhonda Scher is the founder of the Scher Method for Unleashing LinkedIn. She is the author of 5 best-selling books and has been helping entrepreneurs in business create LinkedIn profiles since 2009. Rhonda Scher, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. I'm really happy to be here.
You bet. All right, so I got to ask you, first of all, give us a little bit of background. How did you get into LinkedIn?
So I'll give you the quick backstory. I was a paralegal for 20 years.
Okay.
So when my kids were growing up, it was a great way to just work from 7 to 12, be with the kids. But I knew I was destined to be a serial entrepreneur. I mean, that was really what I was supposed to be. And when networking was such a big thing, I actually ended up kind of transitioning and got into Legal Shield because I was a paralegal. Right.
Sure.
And I gave a lot of talks and I sold group benefits. And every time I'd give a talk, people would ask me one question: when are you going to teach us how you network so well? So that led me to write a book called The 2-Minute Networker, which I wrote in 2007. And in fact, Bob Berg of The Go-Giver,
Yes.
He actually wrote my foreword on that book. So kind of fun. And then when LinkedIn came out, it was very similar for me to, doing what I had done as a paralegal. So I wrote a book called The ABCs of LinkedIn, Get LinkedIn or Get Left Out. And and I've been teaching people and training people ever since then. But the backstory, which is really kind of cool, is after 28 years of marriage, I ended up getting divorced.
Wow.
And not only did I get divorced, but my mom died, my kids were empty nesting, I was a menopausal crazy. I mean, our house got short sale and I had to figure out how I was going to make money. I thought I was going to be one of those supermarket greeters. And like everybody else, I knew I had a superpower, right? And
Right.
My superpower was networking. So during that period of time, I said, well, what can I do to go out and generate, a decent income? So I got my life insurance license and I used LinkedIn to find my clients. And within 6 weeks, I was making $6,000. Within a year, I was doing 6 figures.
Wow.
I hated selling life insurance, but what I figured out was that there was a system that I was using to be so successful, which was on LinkedIn. So I took that system and I literally call it Present, Prospect, Profit. But here's the best part of it. Okay, so I've been doing that, oh my gosh, I don't even know, probably since the last 10 years. I remarried my ex-husband. And I jokingly say he's my husband, didn't have to change my name and the kids are ours. And here's the funniest part. When we got married, when we were very young, he said, I only have one request of you. I'm like, okay. He said, just don't make more money than me. I'm like, okay. When we got married the second time, which was almost 5 years ago, he said, I have one request. I go, okay, please make more money than me. So we call it 40 years with 6 off for good behavior. But because of the system that I've created with LinkedIn, I've literally been able to retire him from his corporate job so he can consult. And the same system that I'm going to share with all your listeners, not only helped me become financially independent and retire my husband, it's helped hundreds and thousands of people follow the same simple system. So I guess that's a long answer to a short question.
Well, it's a great answer, first of all. And, it's wonderful. My parents also divorced and ended up getting back together after several years. But it's always interesting in a situation like that where a couple gets divorced for whatever reason and they end up getting back together. I guess it takes a little bit of a little time to realize, what, that was actually a good relationship because there's nothing else out here.
Yeah. And, I think for us, we got married so young. And the other part of it was that we never fell out of love. We just fell out of like. And I refer to those 6 years that I was divorced as the greatest gift I ever got wrapped in sandpaper, because every lesson, every person that I met and every lesson that I learned helped me come back to the marriage in 2016 as the best version of me.
Right.
I learned to appreciate the stuff that I couldn't. And I also, learned that being an entrepreneur and helping others and sharing the gift that I have, which for me comes naturally, and for others, it's like reading a different language.
Right.
So it's just been such a fun ride, and it just keeps getting better all the time.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I think that's such a, what a great story. So anyway, I would love to do a whole episode on the relationship, because that's such a unique thing. It doesn't happen often enough. So, all right. So here you are, you're selling life insurance, which you don't like, but you found LinkedIn to be this really powerful tool. And from the time that you started selling on LinkedIn till you started developing your system, did that take a month, a year? How quickly were you able to develop that?
Well, it was actually pretty quick, because what I learned was that what I was doing to be successful in life insurance was a system that was completely replicatable and duplicatable. Like, it wasn't that I had any talent, trust me. I just had a technique. It's kind of like me in the kitchen. I have the sign that says the kitchen came with the house, right? But I can follow a recipe. And
Right.
with LinkedIn, it really is a recipe. And one of the things that I found, and this is really interesting, how many times have you seen somebody that's a super professional? They're at the top of their game. They're the utmost, well-known influencer. And you look at their LinkedIn profiles, right? And you're like, it looks like they're looking for a job.
Yes.
I call those people the ones that are in the LinkedIn Witness Protection Program. Nobody can ever find them. So what I do is show them how to get out of that witness protection program so they can be found, so they can, and I call it convert your relationships to revenue and your connections to cash.
Ooh.
And it's pretty simple, so it was pretty much of an easy transition, because all I did was take what I was doing for about a year and then turn it into a program where I could go help others. And it didn't matter what business they were in, as long as they weren't a job hunter, because that's a whole different way of using it. But if you were in any form of sales, business development, or you just wanted your presence on LinkedIn to match what people were saying about you, so there wasn't a disconnect, that's where what I created comes in. And it was really just a natural transition, because that's what I was doing before I sold life insurance for a year anyway.
I love it. Yeah, that's amazing. All right, so let's talk about what you've seen, and you've kind of already alluded to this. I love the LinkedIn Witness Protection Program. So what are some of the most common mistakes that you see people make on LinkedIn?
Well, the first thing that I see is, the banner, okay, that little blue area. Most people don't realize that's prime real estate, and they leave it blank. So if you take that area and you create a banner that's consistent with your branding, and you can do it for free, just use something like canva.com. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see. The second thing is the headshot. Oh my gosh, if you've seen some of the headshots that I've seen, like sometimes I'll see two people in a headshot and I'm like, well, wait a minute, are you an identical twin? This is one person's profile. Or it's a selfie that they took in their car.
Yeah.
And you're like 16 times more likely to get somebody to interact with you based on your headshot. And then the third thing, which is one of the biggest mistakes really, is people don't understand that underneath your name is what's called your headline. Well, if you don't put a headline there, what LinkedIn will default to is your job title. So if your job title is sales manager for XYZ company, nobody's going to find you unless they're specifically looking for you. But if your headline said, I work with X, providing X to X. So you're basically saying, this is what I do, this is who I do it for, and this is the result you get, right? And then in their about section, which is right down the next way, what I see is that people don't actually write it in first person. They don't put their contact information. And every word in there is I. But what they're not doing is they're not telling people, this is what I do. This is what others have said about me. These are sample clients, sample industries. And here's how you contact me. And here's your call to action. So those are the biggest mistakes that I see.
All right. So when you're writing the about section, are you saying, hey, it should be in the third person? So it's like a press release where you would say, hey, Bert Martinez is doing this, that, and the other thing. And some of his clients
Exactly
include.
the opposite.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite. It should be in first person. They call it about because
Right.
it's about you. And, what I love about this, Bert, is one of the things that people don't add is they don't put anything about themselves personally. So what if you run, 10 marathons? What if you have some kind of a nonprofit that you spend a lot of time with? I have a client who's a land banker, and there's nothing sexy about selling land banking as a retirement strategy. It's just in Antelope Valley. But what's interesting about her is she's used the same strategy that she shares with her clients to actually start an orphanage in Vietnam. So when you look at her profile, it talks about that and the fact that she's an Air Force vet. So in the about section, give people a little bit to relate to about you, because right now we're virtual.
Yes.
And we can't look at somebody's office and say, oh, wow, you're a Dodgers fan, or you like golden retrievers, or, you ran that marathon because there's a picture. So in the about section, put something personal. One of the things that my profile says is I'm certified as a face reader. So people always go, what's face reading, right? And that's a whole other conversation. But basically I say to them, oh, well, let me just tell you about your face, right? And I'll look at them and I'll say, all I'm doing is I'm seeing them the way they see themselves, right? And I'll say, oh my gosh, you blend into every place you go. And they go, how do you know that? I said, oh, I looked at your eyebrows. Or, just all these different things. So put something in the about section that people will have a reason to continue the conversation and relate to you about.
Yeah.
I know the next thing
certified face reader.
Right? Yeah. I've been studying this for years. In fact, we're launching an online course. Another gentleman and I who does face reading, can you imagine at first glance meeting somebody or looking at their LinkedIn profile and knowing how to approach them?
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, because if you knew how somebody took in information, right, and you knew they processed lightning fast, or they were somebody that had to think about things, or their mindset about money was, show me the value, or they make. So all of that just kind of ties in because it's all about the rapport.
Sure. Well, and nothing has changed, even though there's tons of technology and we have all these resources or platforms available for us to communicate with one another. We haven't changed that much. We still like to do business with people that we know, like, and trust. And that's just a big deal. And that's not going to change.
It's so true. I mean, we've been pushed into this virtual place, right? Which is why we're on Zoom all the time. But the reality is that, I can look at your background and I see the sign, right? Stay humble, be kind. When I'm not in the process of moving and my office is done, I have those signs all around me. I surround myself with positivity. So immediately I can develop rapport with you just because I see that, right?
Right.
Normally you would see the books that I've published, that are all around me. So it's not all that different. It's just that we have to pivot and adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, you talked about your story and you also talked about your husband's story. Any other success stories that you've helped?
Yeah, absolutely. There's more than I can count, but I'll tell you a couple of them. So one of my clients is an event planner, Nicole. And it was kind of interesting. Nicole was referred to me. She was told about an engagement with a pharmaceutical company that was worth about $30,000. And they told her, they said, look, they don't care about your website. The only thing they're going to consider is what does your LinkedIn profile look like and how do you interview? And she was like, oh my God, my LinkedIn profile does not reflect anything of what I've been doing for the last how many years, right? So I update her profile and she looks like the superstar she is. And she ended up getting that $30,000 gig because most of the other people that were being considered, were in the LinkedIn Witness Protection Program, right? And one that just recently occurred, I've been working with a gentleman who's a commercial real estate broker in San Diego. Now, if you know anything about that market, there's about 2,000 commercial real estate brokers in San Diego, right?
Right.
And he was already doing well. He was already in the top 10, but he had never touched LinkedIn. And somebody had said to him, you might want to consider actually upgrading your profile on LinkedIn. So he was referred to me. And I actually just got a testimonial from him where he told me he 7x'd his ROI and actually added an additional 7 figures of income.
Wow.
Just based on following the system that I told him. So that was really cool. I mean, the list just keeps going, but you know, it doesn't really matter if you follow the steps. You don't need any talent. Honestly, it's just follow the steps. It's a technique that works.
Right.
I've never had anybody that's failed that's followed the system.
Well, it's like you said, it's not based on talent. It's based on the recipe. And, you know, sooner or later, you learn how to follow a recipe. You know, my girls
Right.
who started, one of my girls, I have twin girls. And so one of my twins started, you know, experimenting with cooking and baking at the age of like 13. And she's, you know, she knows how to follow recipes. She's really good now. She's 19. So she is really good in the kitchen. And so it just, like you said, you got to apply it. You just got to follow it. And so when you start posting stuff on LinkedIn, I want to talk about this because I think this is a thing that hangs people up. What should I be posting? Does it matter how often I post? Talk about the whole posting thing.
So posting is an interesting thing because if you think about a post, okay, what happens is a post is like a billboard. So how many times do you drive down the freeway and you never even notice the billboards that you're passing by unless that billboard, you know, pertains to you? So
Right.
The last time I paid attention to a billboard was before the pandemic when I saw a sign that said Cher was playing in Las Vegas. Okay, never would have known it. Came home, said to my husband, you know, we have our 2 anniversaries, right? So the second one was with Elvis in Vegas. I said, hey, let's go see Cher for our anniversary. But for that billboard, I never would have known. Well, In posting, it's similar. So here's the rule. 80% of what you post should be just motivational and inspirational. But here's a caveat. Ask a question. Don't just post something, excuse me, put something that relates to you or to your audience. So you can, you know, post a cute picture, you can post a video. It doesn't really matter what you post, but don't be selling all the time. And I've had posts that have gone past 50,000 views, been shared 130 times, and only because they're motivational and inspirational and they ask a question, right? And I never know, you know, which ones are going to hit. The secret is do it every day. So I post every single day, and Sundays actually are the best days to post. You get a bigger boost on Sunday. Don't know why, but
I wonder if that's maybe because there's less traffic, right? It's a calmer day, and there's not as many people on LinkedIn, and there's not as many posts going out, so you have a better chance of being seen. Something like that, maybe.
Could be. And so the other thing about the post, if you really want to be able to post effectively, so there's 4 different ways to post. You can do just a static post with words. You can do a video. You can put in an image, right? You can post and link to an article. And then there's another cool way to post, which are kudos. And kudos are just a way to acknowledge somebody. So you can, and what's kind of cool about it is it brings attention to the person that you're giving the kudos to. So somebody's probably going to go look at their profiles. But here's the secret sauce. And this is what most people don't realize. When somebody likes or comments on your post, always comment back. So you're actually saying, you know, thanks so much, or respond to it, or whatever. And then what happens is the algorithm kind of picks up, right? And that's a really cool thing. Now, imagine you took it one step further, okay? And you liked a post that I put up, Bert, but I didn't know you, okay? I could actually send you a message and say, hey, Bert, thanks so much for your comment or your like on my post. Curious, what's been up for you? Love to catch up. So now I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just saying, hey, I noticed that you saw my post. Love to find out more. And that's one of the coolest things about it is because it gives you a reason to interact with somebody in a non-salesy way. Make sense?
Yes. Yes. And I want to just, you know, kind of stress this out or emphasize the non-salesy way. I think that, you know, LinkedIn, like any other networking meeting, people would love to sell their stuff. I mean, that's what we all want to do. I want people to buy my stuff. Yeah. But when you ever go to a network meeting, networking meeting, nobody's there to buy. They're there to build relationships, maybe have a few drinks, maybe relax at the end of the day. It's not, it's not a flea market where people are there to buy. It's just a different environment. And I think a lot of people miss that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I always say that LinkedIn is a platform for serving, not selling.
Mhm.
And people are there to find people for sure, right? But the magic is first about the relationships, and what the trend that I'm starting to see, which is actually, I think, a large part of COVID, because people can't go out and see people and make calls, is that their first point of contact in the invitation is, hi, this is what I do. This is where you go to get our stuff. And it's like, excuse me, I don't know you, and you're already inviting me home to meet your kids and, see my financial stuff. It's like, let's get to know each other first before you vomit on me everything you're selling. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they send out connection requests. It's, I don't even know you, but I want to sell to you.
Yeah.
And by the way, you could read my profile, because they look at it and they don't even, you can tell they've never even seen what I've written. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
So let me ask you this, because there are a lot of automated tools out there that will help you, make connections, post, and all sorts of different things. What's your take on these automated tools?
Well, so the first thing is LinkedIn prevents you from using them. Okay. LinkedIn actually, it violates their terms and conditions. So if you're going to use them, be very careful. And if you are going to use them, make sure you don't use a Chrome extension. The Chrome extensions are the first ones that LinkedIn detects. I think that there's a lot of people that are using them, and there's no shortage of them, believe me.
Right.
But if you're going to use them with caution. In other words, limit the number of requests that you send out, and don't make the messaging robotic. Make it as if it comes from your own voice, because if it doesn't, it's going to be dismissed. You have to personalize it no matter what, and be careful.
Sure. So I think that's a great point, because you're right. I think that LinkedIn, Facebook went through the same thing, where there used to be where you could automate posting on Facebook and stuff like that. And I think LinkedIn was able to crush all of those. There's back to the algorithm. The algorithm figures out, man, this person is posting every couple of minutes. It doesn't look like a human's doing it, and it sets up that alarm, and then they
put you in LinkedIn jail, which is not a fun place to be. Trust me, getting out of LinkedIn jail is very hard to do. So you don't want that to happen.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, then my last question on posting, LinkedIn, like a lot of these, again, Facebook does the same thing, but a lot of these platforms will say, hey, today is Rhonda's birthday, or congratulations to Rhonda because she hit her work anniversary. Do you use this as an opportunity? Do you just bypass this?
No, actually, I love doing birthdays. And the one thing that I would say is make sure that your birthday message is original. So mine's kind of cute. It's almost like I'm singing. And cool story about this, actually. I had sent a birthday message out to one of my past clients from several years ago. And he was so touched by the birthday message that he actually sent me a message saying, hey, thanks so much. How are things going? So I popped over to his profile and I looked at it and I said, oh my God, what did he do to the profile I did for him? He had changed jobs, and he kind of took a mishmash of what I had done. But beyond that, he still had his old email and his old phone number on it. So I called him and he said, oh my God, you send me a birthday message and now you're calling me? And I said, well, I'm actually calling you because I didn't know if you looked at your profile, you still have your old email and your old phone number on there. And he goes, and I said, I just happen to have your cell phone in my phone because I have that for all my clients. And he said, oh my God, I didn't leave on the best of terms. Thank you so much. And at the end of it, he said, I should just hire you to come in and do a new profile for me and my team. So that happy birthday message was 5 figures for me and, an awakening for him. So more often than not, people want to hear from you, but it needs to be personalized. And the same thing for the work messages, although I will say that sometimes people just add something to their profile, so they really haven't changed. So use it as an opportunity to, instead of congratulating them on what happened, just to reconnect and say, hey, I noticed there's been some changes, love to know what's going on, and invite them with your calendar link to set up an appointment.
Yeah. One of the things that I like about that story is the example of serving that person. You didn't intend to try to sell them anything. You already had a relationship. You could have just let it go. This guy's, obviously not following my system. He's got all this stuff going on that's probably not good. But you took the time to call him and say, hey, are you aware of this and that? And you serve that client or just serve that person. And because of that, you accidentally, or what do you call it? You were rewarded with a sale that you weren't expecting. I think that's a great example of servicing those people that you connect with without being salesy.
Yeah, and I consider everybody that's in my network part of my family, and I practice something called 10 before 10. And what that is touching 10 people before 10 a.m. So it's just reaching out to say, hey, what's been going on with you? How are you? Or here's a great resource that I found. So whether it's, I found a way for you to get Zoom at a discounted price, or I found this great new app, or there's an event that's coming up, something that you can share, and then it just leads into conversation. But if you touch 10 people before 10 a.m., your calendar will always be full, and you'll never be perceived as selling because you're always coming from a place of service.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great, what do you call it? A great little not acronym, but
practice.
What's that?
Well, it's a practice. 10 before 10 is actually a practice, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a great way to remember that 10 before 10. I think that's fantastic. All right, I want to talk about what can people do to have a better chance of getting found, to get out of the LinkedIn Witness Protection Program.
So part of that is keywords. Okay, if you know exactly what you do, make sure that you have those keywords. I have a real estate agents typically will not get found, for their next listing. But I had a client in Houston, and her LinkedIn profile had said, Houston real estate agent helping buyers, relocation. She had it all over. Those were the key words, right? Great banner, great photo. And she calls me one day. She goes, Wendy, you're not going to believe this. I go, what? She said, I had a CEO that found me on LinkedIn. He said he was moving to Houston and wanted to know if I could help him buy a home. So, using the keywords and having an optimized profile really gets you out of that LinkedIn protection, the witness protection program. The other thing, which a lot of people don't use, is that section called featured. And that's where you can put case studies, you can put videos. So if you look on my profile, the first thing that I just recently added, I had a woman who is the number 2 in a very, very large network marketing company. And she knew that there's a lot of nutritional network marketing companies that are not, staying in business right now. So she was looking for other people that were, exiting their companies and looking for a leader in a company in network marketing. So I revamped her profile. We had not even gotten into the entire system. And it was about 2 days later, and she said, what did you do? I said, what are you talking about? She said, I had somebody reach out to me that found me on LinkedIn, and they were so impressed. They're now signing up to be one of my brand leaders. So again, do you get found? Yeah. But more often than not, it's you going out, making the connections and nurturing those connections and posting. But if your profile also has recommendations, which are key, and the rich text media. So when I talk about rich text media, just like I talked about Sophia, you can actually look on my profile in the feature section and you'll see a lot of video. So Sophia actually did a video talking about the results she got. I have another video right next to it of Kirk, who's a mortgage guy, who says, I generated an additional $50,000 over and above what I normally would have done simply by following Rhonda's system. So what your profile needs to have to get you noticed and get you found is they give you 13 places to put rich text media. That's videos, that's audios, that's PDFs. Use it, and use it in a way to put third-party proof of what you do, because nobody cares what you say. They only care what other people say.
Yeah, I like that. Absolutely. there's an old adage that people believe like about 5 or 10% of what you say, but they believe like 90% of what other people
Right.
say. And I can't remember if it was Harvard or one of these Ivy League schools that they did some research and they found even when it's a paid spokesperson, the results are the same. And I thought that was kind of weird. But anyway, since you mentioned your profile a couple of times, I thought we'd bring it up and kind of that way people can see what you're talking about. So here's the banner that you're talking about. So somebody goes to your, and they can immediately see your connection consultant, LinkedIn profile writing, LinkedIn training, keynote speaking, managed LinkedIn services, on-site webinar training. So it basically, this is what you're talking about. Here's that very, what do you call it, high profile real estate that most of us don't use very well.
Right. And the other thing you'll notice is I use a Google phone number. So that 760 is a Google phone number. I do not put my private cell number.
Gotcha.
And
smart.
It gives me the option to choose whether I want to pick up that call or not. So if somebody says, because it announces with Google who it is, right, and why they're calling, I'll pick up. Otherwise, I'll just let it go to voicemail and I'll call them back, if I'm available. But you can see also when you go to mobile, it's clean. That's the other thing, because that banner needs to look just as good on mobile as it does on a desktop.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because more and more everything is mobile. If it's not mobile friendly, you're not gonna be found, or it's not gonna work as well because everything now is mobile. And so as I go down here, you were talking. Oh, so here's the featured section that you were talking about.
Right. So there's the testimonial from the gal I was just telling you about, Sophia, who is with the network marketing company. And right next to her is Kirk, and that's where he's actually showing you the checks of the extra 50,000 that he made. And then right next to that is a little mini sizzle reel that actually has tons of testimonials on it. And, it just kind of keeps going. And then that's a podcast that I was on. And those are just, in the next one are just some PowerPoint testimonials. So, that's great real estate to be able to focus. Now, if you're in a business where case studies are what people are looking for, like my client that does commercial real estate, he's got 3 case studies there.
Yeah, so that's impressive too. Especially, it's one thing to have one case study. It's another one to have, 2 or 3 or 4. And then of course, here's one that's saying, hey, I made an extra $50,000, or, hey, I found this, what do you call it? Great individual for network marketing.
Ambassador. Yeah, brand ambassador found me. That's
brand ambassador. Really cool. That's it. Yeah. So that's amazing. And then here's the experience. Where would I find the about section?
Well, the about section is go up a little bit. Okay, now go down. Sorry.
That's all right.
It's right after the featured section. Okay, so there it says about. So
there it is. Okay.
What's most important about the about section is your first 2 or 3 lines. And the reason is when you're first looking at a profile, the first 2 or 3 lines are what gives somebody the ability to say, click, see more. And then once they click and see more, then they're going to see everything else. So that tells people what I do. And again, those are my keywords. I literally show you how to book 2 to 10 appointments a week, right?
Yep.
Then there's my background. So, it basically just says, look, yes, I do LinkedIn, but I'm also trained as Train the Trainer in NLP. I'm a certified face reader. I'm certified in DISC. I've done blah, blah, blah. So again, you need to know who I am before you're going to consider talking to me.
Absolutely.
Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in a what do you call it? In a competitive environment. I mean, look, you mentioned real estate. There are other people who do the, supposed LinkedIn optimization profile thingy. So everybody's got competition. And the question always is, why should I choose this person versus this other person? And a testimonial can be a difference maker. The headline, what you do, I like your headline was, or I call it a headline, but in your about section, the first 2 sentences says an enormous amount of information about what you do. And then somebody can go a little bit deeper and say, wow, she's been doing this for 10 plus years. That's incredible.
Yeah. And the other thing you want to look at is the recommendations. And that's something that people ignore. When somebody tells you, oh my God, you did a great job. This was an amazing interview, whatever it is, say, you know what? And these are my favorite 4 words. And I teach these to everybody. I need your help. I would love if you could write a recommendation for me on LinkedIn, and I'll send you the link. I have over 110 recommendations, and most of them are current. That's what makes me different, I think, than a lot of other people, is that I don't just teach people to do it, I do it for myself.
Yes.
And that's huge. And you have to give recommendations as well. So it's not just, getting them from people, but it's also giving them. And I think that's just comes back to serving. When somebody does something really great, the greatest gift you can give somebody is a written recommendation. And the reason is when you see that recommendation, it's going to pop up as the most current one. Guess what someone's going to do? They're going to pop over to your profile and look at you.
Yes.
Because unlike a recommendation or a testimonial on a website, which says, oh, Mary S., you actually can go look at the person that wrote it, right? And find their contact information and call them if you wanted to.
Right, right. And to me, this is a great tool that a lot of people don't take, don't utilize completely, because if you're going to hire somebody on LinkedIn and they have 3, 4, 5 recommendations, I think you're being lazy or at least neglectful not to check on those references to make sure that they're real. Because nowadays things can be faked. And, I hear it all the time. I talk to people all the time where they hired somebody and they got completely burned and they didn't check any references, which I'm thinking, it's one thing if you're risking $100, who cares?
Right.
But when you're risking $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 and you're not willing to do a little bit of digging, it's kind of on you.
Absolutely. And I think that's huge, and a lot of times what you'll see is that people have recommendations and they're very old. So
Yes.
You also want to look at the date that somebody put a recommendation. I mean, that's also huge because what somebody else says about you is 1,000 times more powerful than what you say.
Yeah.
And that's, the question that you asked, I think is a great one, because I ask this to people all the time. I actually wrote a post one time about how I invest about 20% of my gross income into coaches and mentors. Okay. And the reason that I do that is because I see my business growing as a result of the people that I'm investing in. But the question I always ask them is, can you show me some examples of people that you've worked with, right? Is there anybody that I can call? And how much of your income do you invest in coaches and mentors? Those are the critical questions that you want to ask before you're going to start shelling out 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, whatever it happens to be. Because if you don't do that, then it's kind of like playing the stock market without knowing what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's jump into this. I want to talk about connection requests and walk us through this. As far as going about making a connection request, who to connect with, you touched a little bit about making it personal. Give us a little bit deeper insights on that.
So but there's probably, I think the number is now over 50% of people are using mobile. Okay. So when you're using a mobile device and you're making a connection, you have to actually click the 3 dots in order to personalize a connection request. So what most people do is they just hit connect. The secret is actually personalizing it. It's, hey, I noticed that we share some common connections. We both went to the same school. We both are in the same industry, whatever it happens to be. But always personalize the connection request. And then when somebody accepts it, then you want to actually send them, excuse me, then you want to actually send them a thank you message. And the reason that you want to do that is because otherwise the conversation goes dead, right? You want to tell them a little bit something about you, but by the same token, you also want to ask them about them, because maybe there's an opportunity for you to refer them business, or maybe they're looking for somebody that does what you do. Excuse me. So what I recommend is send the connection request, always personalize it, and then send a thank you message, but have a call to action. And if they ignore the call to action and the thank you message, then maybe a week or 2 later, just say, hey, not sure if you saw my message, love to just catch up, because a good number of people are just super busy and they might not see that message. Now, the other thing that's really cool is when somebody accepts your connection request, LinkedIn has a way that you can send a message using audio. Have you ever tried that?
No, I did not even know this existed.
So it's only on your mobile, but it's the coolest thing. You just literally go to that person's profile, click message, and then on an iPhone, I think it's the same on Android, you just send an audio message. So it might be like, hey, Bert, thank you so much for accepting my connection request. You mentioned something about XYZ. Love to know more. I'm putting a link below to my calendar. If you're up for it, let's jump on a call. I promise it'll be in the no sales zone. Love, talk soon. You know what? All you have to do is just figure out how to click the return message using the audio. It takes you not even, 5 seconds? And people love that. And you can even do a video. You can send them a video message.
Wow.
Which is so cool. So, the connections are starting the relationships. And my rule of thumb is, because this is the other question that comes up. Well, who do I accept? I get connection requests all the time. Number one, no picture, no accept. If you don't have a picture, I'm not accepting you because I don't know if you're real. The second thing is make sure it's in a language you can read. You can't believe how many I get that are in languages that I don't speak. And then third, look at their profile. And if it looks like there's some area of commonality, then you might want to accept. And if not, if you have those 500 already, just click ignore. I don't like the I don't know you. And the reason is because if you get 5 people that click I don't know you, LinkedIn puts you in jail, which means you have to have an email address in order to make the connection.
Yeah, and I really dislike this about all the platforms. In one sense, they say, hey, you get to connect with people, blah, 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 but only people you know, which is like, well, that's really kind of dumb.
Right.
And so I really dislike the fact that somebody could penalize you. I don't know who this guy or this girl is. And so boom, you could get in trouble over it. I just think that's ridiculous. If they're being pesky, that's different. I mean, I think you should be able to report somebody, but if you don't know them, I don't care about that. I want to meet people I don't know. So I want to talk about something that is all over LinkedIn and to me is kind of dumb. And I want to get your opinion on it, which is you've seen the, LinkedIn open networker type thing, which is the acronym is LION. And I thought, well, that is kind of dumb because I don't want to have 200,000 connections with people like you said, that I have no way of serving or helping or even making an intelligent connection. And I just think that this, LION thing, this LinkedIn open network thing is just an ego thing to be able to say, look at all the connections I have.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And, you want to build your network strategically. What you'll find is that the lines, and first of all, you can only have 30,000 connections. After that, people have to follow you. But, if you have 30,000 connections that aren't people that are, relative to you in your network, what's the point? Right? It's not about quantity, it's about quality. And, I get that you have to start somewhere. But if you're going to start somewhere, start with the people that you know. They don't have to be business connections. They could be people that you went to school with. They could be people that you've worked with at past jobs, friends. Everybody that you meet, just say to them, hey, are you on LinkedIn? I have an amazing network of people. I'd love to connect with you. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of LIONs either. But it's been around for a long time. You got to remember, Microsoft bought LinkedIn in 2015. Yes. 26 point something billion. And it's evolving and it's changing all the time.
Yeah. And I think, at first I was a little apprehensive because no offense, Microsoft, they don't to me, they don't to me have a great record of making things better. Sometimes they have, I think, a bigger record for making things worse, but I think they're really working on LinkedIn. It has, I think, improved in a lot of ways, and they need to put the same effort on Skype. All right, so I want to ask you this. Final question would be the paid version versus the free version, because for instance, looking at your profile, the first thing I noticed is that you have the paid version. And so talk about this.
So there's a few different versions of the paid version. When LinkedIn got purchased by Microsoft, the game's changed. It really sort of became a pay to play because you're going to run up against a certain number of searches when you're in the free version. And it's going to say, okay, you've hit your limit. The first thing that when you see a gold button that tells you that somebody has either premium or a sales navigator or recruiter. So what it says is they're pretty serious about LinkedIn. But what I really love is using Sales Navigator. And the reason is because of the features. Now, one of the things that most people don't realize is where a lot of the value comes in is knowing who's looked at your profile. Now, people will look at your profile, but maybe not connect with you. Or maybe you have first level connections that are following your posts, and then all of a sudden they pop over and they look at your profile, but you would have no way of knowing that. So either with Premium or Navigator, you can see who looked at your profile. The other thing with Navigator is you can create your searches, you can save them, and as new people come into LinkedIn or fit the criteria, LinkedIn will give you that list of searches. So Sales Navigator is an amazing tool. And one of the ways that I recommend my clients use it is when you're searching your own database. So let's say you have 500 or 1,000 connections, and they're like the first cousins that you've never really had a conversation with. You can actually go in and using Sales Navigator, you get 12 additional features. So you can now say, okay, I want to look at my connections that live in San Diego, that have the title CEO, that, whatever it is. And you can actually segregate that out. And Navigator will tell you how many of them have posted in the last 30 days, all of these different things. So, the ROI is clearly there if you are looking to grow your business and you want to know who's looked at you and you want to be able to continue to expand and reconnect with your current level of connections on a deeper level than what the free version gives.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I can see who looked at my profile and maybe it makes sense for me to connect with them, that would fall under my 10 things before 10 a.m. right? I can reach out and say, hey, Rhonda, I noticed that you checked out my profile, or whatever. I don't know what the right verbiage, but I noticed that you looked at my profile and it seems like you and I went to the same school. Let's connect or something like that. Correct?
Well, you wouldn't do it. You could do it in writing that way. If you're going to do an audio one, what the coolest thing to do is to say, hey, Bert, notice that you viewed my profile. We connected back in 2011 and never had a conversation. Love to catch up and know what caught your eye. See if there, and I have some great resources I'd love to share with you. I put a link to my calendar below. Let's catch up.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times for my clients and for myself, just by doing that one simple strategy, how many appointments have gotten booked that have led to thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of business, not with the intention of looking for that as a byproduct.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right. So if somebody wants to connect with you, if they have questions, they want maybe some help with their profile, they can reach you at yourconnectionconsultant.com, yourconnectionconsultant.com.
No, actually, the best way to just do it is my name, rhondaschur.com. And they can send an email to simple LinkedIndiva@gmail.com. I just made that really, somebody once called me the LinkedIn Diva and it stuck. So it's LinkedIndiva@gmail.com. And if they go to Rhonda Schur, that website's being upgraded, but they can get a copy of my LinkedIn planner. And they can also reach out to me and I'm happy to give them a complimentary consultation, a LinkedIn profile audit. Just send an email to LinkedIndiva@gmail, say you heard me here, and happy to give you a free 30 minutes and let's, get you out of the LinkedIn Witness Protection Program and do a free audit.
I love it. I love it. This has been a great, great episode. And I've learned a lot. I did not know about the possibility of sending an audio or a video. So that is going to be a big help because who has time to read? Exactly.
And, my favorite thing is I always say, if you're not LinkedIn, you might be left out, right?
Yeah, I love it. If you're not LinkedIn, you're possibly going to be left out. I love it. Rhonda, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm going to put your information in the notes below and people can connect with you. And again, thank you so much. The information was awesome.